as I am the soldier and poet. Yes, tell this to all the world.
In today's episode, we are going to be roulette style answering all of the most asked questions that people are typing into Google about podcasting.
Hello and welcome to the Bad Sound School podcast. This is the podcast all about the lifestyle of podcasters, content creators, and entrepreneurs trying to carve out our spot online and foster communities, make changes, and create amazing content.
Every week, it's our goal to share, put into practice tips, inspiration, motivation, and bits of wisdom, either from our own experience or the experience of podskis and collaborators, and or curated bits from industry experts. I'm Studio Steve.
And I'm Veronica. We're audio and video producers, coaches, and your go-to content creation gurus. So come hang out with us every week. Follow us on your podcast apps. And if you're feeling extra generous, give us a review on your podcast app too.
Yes, and today we're really excited since it's the Thanksgiving holiday time. We're recording this on a Wednesday, which is way too late to be giving this to our podcast editor, Daniela, for the quick turnaround. So hopefully you have this by Friday, which will be Black Friday for you if you're listening. Mm-hmm. And since we, are struggling with the holiday distractions and all of that stuff too, we thought it would be fun to kind of just improvise a little bit with this episode and roulette style have a wheel spinner, which I have synced up here, to decide who will answer the question. Steven! I'm going to do the announcer voice.
But before we get into the episode, I would like to express my gratitude for all of the beautiful people in our community. We're so grateful for our clients, our students, our people on YouTube, our people on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah.
Those who have been following us since day one, our super fans. We are fan of yours as much as you are fans of us.
Yes, huge fans, and we're so grateful. It's been amazing to watch the growth of our clients and our students, and to know that we've played a role in that is just the most incredible thing I've ever experienced in my life. Definitely want to also extend my gratitude for you, listener, listening to this podcast. Thank you so much, and just keep coming back. We're going to be always pouring out the best quality and the funnest content that we possibly can to help you in your weekly endeavors.
We're grateful.
Yes.
And I'm grateful for you.
Oh, I'm grateful for you too.
You are?
Uh-huh. You're the best co-host any guy could have. And business partner.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so now that I can hear our daughter cringing when she has to listen back to this podcast episode with us on a drive somewhere, let's get to the episode. As I mentioned, this is a roulette episode. Now, I'm nervous. I have pulled up a randomized list from answerthepublic.com of two search terms that I've typed in. One is my podcast, and the other one is podcasting. So if you're unfamiliar with Answer the Public, it's a really cool tool, and you can actually do a couple searches every day for free. And you just type in a keyword, and it shows you the long tail version of that keyword. So for example, when I type in podcasting...
And this is stuff that people are searching for on Google, right?
Yes, currently. This is the trending stuff. So this is basically taken from the same technology as Google's auto-populate. So we know that if you type something into Google, like podcasting, that you'll see a bunch of other options of what people are most commonly searching. And those are trending. Those are based off of what people have been most commonly searching recently. So this is very recent. So for example, when I type in podcasting, the most popular thing that comes up is, can podcasting make money? So what's so cool about Answer the Public is it takes podcasting, but it puts all sorts of different, articles before the term and after the term, and it separates it with what, when, where, which, who, why, will, and then it also has prepositions. So can, for, is, near, to, with, without, which is really cool. But we're going to stick with the actual questions. So we're going to do the what, when, why, where, and can and hows today. And I have those randomly pulled up for both podcasting and my podcast. And I also have this nifty spinner wheel that has Veronica and I's name on it. And when whichever one of us win, I will also announce our name.
La rueda de la fortuna.
Sí. I don't know what that means. Oh, yes, the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, so let's start it off and see who gets to go first.
Veronica.
That's rigged.
It's not rigged. It's 50-50. I'm telling you.
Oh, I'm nervous.
Okay, so I will let you decide. Do you want a how, a what, a where, or a can?
Can.
Can podcasts be a career?
Oh.
Uh-huh.
I guess it depends. If you like a podcaster.
Yeah, so can you make a career? The other one right underneath it is, can podcast be a business?
Well, there are different angles that you can take this answer, but I am going to say yes. And I am going to provide you with a few examples. If you don't want to be the talent, if you want to be kind of like behind the scenes in production and all that, then you can get into podcast editing.
Yes.
You can also be a podcast manager.
Yes.
You can also be a writer or for a production team for a podcast. So those are the things that come to my mind.
Mm-hmm. There's also podcast. You said management, but there's management. There's social media management. There's also all sorts of jobs in the production. And there are big networks that are always hiring for people to work in the podcasting industry. And you can check that out if you subscribe to the Pod News newsletter. In that newsletter, typically you'll see when there's people hiring.
Yeah. For me, the way I see it is that podcast, even though it's not considered a platform, it's a place where you can be as an influencer or as a tool that you can use to grow your community. For example, calling somebody who sells things on Instagram an Instagrammer, or an influencer on Instagram an Instagrammer. You're just like, you are your brand, you are the influencer, and then you're using all these different platforms and tools to advertise or to grow your influence so you can sell whatever it is that you sell.
Yeah, or so that you can work with brands.
Or so you can
advertise and work with sponsorships. So I think
to box somebody in this definition of, oh, I'm a podcaster. No, you're so much more than that.
Yeah.
You're an audio influencer.
Yeah, an audio influencer. I like that. Yeah, but I think the short answer to this, I agree with you, is just yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
And I love that you called it an Instagrammer, because Instagram themselves are not paying a lot of these top paid, like wealthiest influencers that you see that are Instagrammers. They are, but they're making money from other places. And the podcast players themselves are not going to pay you, even if you get 1 million downloads per episode. But advertisers will. And you'll also be asked to you'll just blow up. And podcasting is a very, very effective way to build your brand. And it's an amazing thing that everybody should be doing if you're really interested in building a business. Okay, let's spin the wheel again.
Yes.
So I hope you just get all of the wheel spins. Okay, here we go. Because then we'll do this like 5 times and you'll just answer all the questions. Steven. All right, so why don't you choose for me? We already did a can, right, for you. So choose a how, what, when, where, or who for me.
Let's do who.
Who? The first and top most searched thing, and actually cross-referenced to Keyword Surfer right now, searched 480 times a month.
Wow.
Is who invented podcasting. So for this, I actually contacted Evo Terra via Twitter, because I'm always doing this kind of keyword research, and I contacted him a ways back. But Evo Terra, if you're unfamiliar with him, is the host of the podcast Pontifications podcast, and also just a really fun personality in the podcasting space. And we've ran into him at multiple podcasting events. There was one actually in Salt Lake City where a heated debate started around this topic, which was who invented podcasting, but also like where the name came from. Because I think when you're talking about who invented it, a lot of people are wondering, where does the term podcasting come from as well?
Yeah, because I was part of the uneducated ones that thought that podcasting was coming from the word iPod.
Yeah, and that's what I thought too. It was a mix between iPod.
So you're uneducated too.
Yeah, and actually I believe it was the host of the event or somebody's like, yeah, it's a mix between iPod and broadcast, and they were like giving away a prize for the correct answer. And Evo said, no, actually, that's not where the name came from. So I'll answer that because I have this fun tweet here. And it was actually, this is a picture that he sent me from the Podcasting for Dummies. I think it's like the first edition because he was the co-author of that book. So there's a really cool excerpt from the book, but I'm not going to read it all. I'll just kind of paraphrase. Basically, of all the possibilities that you could come up with for where podcasting comes from, they prefer personal on-demand narrowcasting, not broadcasting. It's supposed to be narrowcasting, which has to do with the technology of it. And that shortens nicely to podcasting. Yeah, so it's actually personal on-demand narrowcasting is the real meaning behind the term. Now, that doesn't really completely answer the question who invented podcasting. So the simple answer, or maybe the most accepted answer for who invented podcasting, is Dave Weiner and Adam Curry. Dave Weiner is a software developer, entrepreneur, and writer who lives in New York, and he's noted for his contributions to Outliner, scripting, content management, and web services, as well as blogging and podcasting. And I'm getting that from Wikipedia. And Adam Curry is a podcaster, announcer, internet entrepreneur, and media personality known for his stint as a VJ on MTV.
Oh, wow.
And being one of the first celebrities to personally create and administer websites. Also known for co-hosting the No Agenda show in the 2000s. So he's a very popular podcaster and a celebrity. But basically, it all kind of happened in year 2000 when the technology of the RSS that we're all familiar with now, that RSS feed or format or language, whatever you want to call it. And that is credited to Dave Weiner, who is the software developer and the author of the RSS format. And so they
created the RSS feed.
RSS feed out of a demand of what people wanted, something called audio blogging.
Okay.
So it was audio blogging in 2000. It was actually October of 2000. The concept of attaching sound and video files in RSS feeds was proposed in a draft by Tristan Lewis, and he's actually a French-born American author, entrepreneur, and internet activist. So he proposed that idea, kind of got the ball rolling with Dave Weiner, and Dave Weiner kind of was talking to Adam Curry about it, and there was a bunch of other people involved.
Then Apple created an app, and then that's how the distribution of the RSS started.
Yeah, so it all kind of started with the RSS, and then from there, it went to pushing audio to a device, right? So that was RSS to iPod, which was, that moved MP3 files from this userland radio to iTunes and encouraged other developers to build on that idea. And that's was
fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So that kind of is where it went from 2000 up into 2004, where the media in newsfeed idea was picked up by multiple developer groups, and including Apple. And so it was later called, I think, Transistor, after a trademark dispute with Apple or something. So it's a very fascinating history, actually, of podcasting. It was actually in a Guardian in February 2004, where journalist Ben Hammersley suggested the term podcasting as a name for the technology. And that's what I was mentioning before with Hammersley, and that the term podcasting came from personal on-demand narrowcasting. And that's when he suggested that it should be. So hopefully that answers your question. It was Dave Weiner and Adam Curry who invented podcasting, short answer. They're kind of the guys who get the credit for it. Okay, are you ready for another wheel spin?
Yes.
I think we can do
Spin the wheel.
Let's do 2 more wheel spins. Here we go.
Veronica.
Okay, so now I will choose for you. Let's see, we did who, we did can. And let's see, it's really interesting to see. Maybe you can choose from 3 questions. How does that sound? There is, why is podcasting important in the whys? That's the top why. There is, how podcasting works is the top how. There is, and then that's in podcasting. I'll give you a couple from my podcast. There is, why my podcast won't play is the top why. And then the top will, we actually did an episode about this, is will my podcast be successful? That has taken the top spot. What's my podcast name? But right under that is, what should my podcast be about?
Okay, I'm going to answer what my podcast should be about.
Yes.
That's that?
What my podcast should be about.
What my podcast should be about. Because I think this is something that is stopping a lot of people from starting a podcast. They are curious about starting a podcast, but they don't know what they're going to say when they hit the record button. and I think that is just like an anxiety of everybody. Like, oh my God, like once I hit the record button, like, what am I going to say? I have nothing important to say. Nobody cares. But I think I was talking to you about the different podcasts that you can have, even if you don't know anything about anything, which I doubt, because, you know, you may have experiences. You may know more than you think you do.
Or than you give yourself credit for.
Than you give yourself credit for. So let's start with you and your skills and your professional background.
Well, you break it down into 3 different, almost like podcast personas, right?
So, yeah. So I do that to make it, hopefully I remember the podcast persona.
It's the curator.
But is the professional.
Professional.
Is the curator.
Uh-huh.
And it's also
What's that?
role model.
Oh, and the role model.
The role model. And I forgot the 4th one.
Is there a 4th one?
I think there's a 4th one, but it'll come to me. So the first one is the professional. So let's say that you want to have a podcast about what you do. Like you see the need for the information and the skills that you have acquired during your lifetime. Maybe you're an audio engineer like Studio Steve, or maybe you are a corporate attorney, or maybe you are a baker, or anything, any profession, and you see the need for that kind of information and you want to start a podcast because you're feeling generous about sharing this information. And also because in the back of your mind, you think that, well, maybe I can have a business. I can create a business around what I know. So that's the professional. That's very easy for you to do because you have the credentials to back you up. You have the experience. Now what you need to do is to really find out what people need help with. We don't want to be teaching something that people are not interested in, or that is too complicated or too complex, and we just want to sound know-it-all-y and like, oh, look at my credentials. That is just not going to help you grow, but just bring it down to simple terms and a fun way to teach it. Or to share it.
Okay, so the professional.
The professional. Then the role model is the person who is walking the walk, who is going through the weight loss program, who is going through the journey of healing after a divorce, or healing after losing a loved one, or whatever it is that person is going through, and they want to document and they want to bring an audience with them in their journey. That's the role model. Or the person who has done it already, who has lost all the weight, who turned their side hustle into a multi-million business, and they want to share what they did and be a role model for other people and inspire other people to do that.
Okay, I love that.
And then we have the curator.
The curator.
And this is a fun one because even though, and this is for you who's listening to this podcast and you think, I have nothing to say, you have a passion. Like all of us have a passion. Let's say I have a passion for Broadway, but I have no idea. I'm not an actor. I'm never, I go to Broadway shows, but I'm not a producer. I'm not part of the cast. I don't have any of the credentials or the connections or blah, blah, blah. But something that you can start doing is to do your research and curate information that your audience would be interested in. Reviews about the shows. Maybe you want to talk about things that
just talk about controversial things within the Broadway community or industry. Maybe you can reach out and talk to a cast member, or talk to somebody who does the makeup, or you want to interview and you want to bring all that information, or somebody who is
there to kind of give guidance to people who want to work on Broadway.
Yeah.
So you can do all these things and curate all this information.
Which in turn will turn you into an expert in all things Broadway after you've been podcasting for a while.
Yeah, because that's your passion and you're spending a lot of time doing it. So why not sharing all the information that you're gathering and accumulating with an audience?
I love that. So that is the curator. So we have professional, we have role model, and we have curator. Is the other one journalist or interviewer?
Oh, yeah. The journalist or the interviewer.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of podcasts out there, interview-based podcasts, we call them. And those are super fun.
Yeah.
Because you get to sit down with people and have conversations about, all different topics and people with different backgrounds. It's great for networking because you make connections with those people. You make an impression.
And you can, all four of these personality types can also blend together. So you could center your interviews around your passion and curate high quality interviews to your audience as well too. So that's great. We have those four personalities and that sums up that question. Yeah. Let's do one more question to end off this episode, and I'll read it. And I'll read a few more of them for you listener as well so that you can know what people are asking.
Steven!
That turned out pretty well. It does seem like it's rigged, doesn't it?
It is.
It's not. I just pushed the button. Okay, so here we go. So in podcasting, I'll give you a few questions and you can choose which one I answer.
Okay.
But then we already had, can podcasting make money? How podcasting makes money? People are really interested in that. What is podcasting all about? When did podcasting become popular? Quick answer to that is probably 2015 with the Serial podcast is what most people would say. Why podcasting is the future? Why is podcasting so popular? This one's really funny. The top will Spotify ruin podcasting? That's an interesting question. I wouldn't mind answering that. Let's see what else we have with my podcast. How to get my podcast on Spotify. How to promote my podcast is very high. It's 170 times a month. That one's searched. How to get my podcast on iTunes. Which one?
What podcasting is all about.
What podcasting is all about.
And if you can answer also, is podcasting the future?
Ooh, okay. So what podcasting is all about. Yeah, and that's actually the top one right now. It's the most trending one right now. A lot of times it takes a little while for like keyword surfer and everything to catch up with what's trending on Google. So even though you'll get a result that says it's not searched a lot every month, it's because there hasn't been enough months of it passing. But it's absolutely the trending one. What is podcasting all about? So podcasting, I think, is all about communication and transferring energy, which is just communication. I think it's all about providing a place for us to exchange ideas and for us to grow and change. And for that reason, I think that's why it's the future. And that's why audio is the future. But the long format conversations and sort of the intricate little details that happen in the conversing of podcasting is almost the antidote in a lot of ways to the fast attention deficit mindless scrolling of this age. It's a place for us virtually still to be together and to still honor those long conversations and to still give every little nuance of thought priority and to have a space where we can give voice to ourselves and to others and to things that we're passionate about. And I think that really is what it's all about. And then, of course, people are searching even more than that question about money. Is it about money? It really isn't about money, but it is a tremendous way that you can use the power of it definitely to make a lot of money, and you can feel good about that too. And you can be really happy with the fact that podcasting can make you very wealthy. But anyway, what do you think about that answer?
I love it.
Okay, good.
I love it. I think you're right. I think in the, in this fast-paced, mindlessly scrolling and ADDs, I think it's just so refreshing to just get in your car and play an episode and go and run your errands and stop and get your latte. Or also when you are doing chores at home, it's just you get so immersed for so long. And that is just not, you can't see that in any other form of media.
No.
Unless you are watching a TV show or things like that. But you can't really multitask.
You can't really multitask. And it's this different like function of our brains.
Mm-hmm.
The way that we consume. Veronica is a little iffy about that term. She doesn't like to be a consumer of content. But
consume. How do you consume your content?
But it's weird. It's this unique form of this brain mechanism that makes it totally different than a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why even things like audio dramas and the storytelling podcasts and that we listen to, the high production podcasts as well, are also still kind of just this different form of communication and giving voice to ideas in a different way. Even if it's just reading a book out loud. And there's podcasts that do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a highly searched term, is podcasts that read books.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in a podcast that would search well, that could come up in search rankings, maybe think about reading a book and giving credit to it and giving your own thoughts to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for this episode.
It's podcast in the future.
Oh, I said yes. That is why it's the future. It's the future because it's what keeps us grounded. It's actually the antidote, like I said, for what's going on. So the reason it's the future is because it has a need, and it's important for us as we evolve into these virtual specimens that we still have a place where we can connect.
Mm-hmm.
And we still have a place where we can sort of remember our humanity. That's my
It's going to be interesting to see how it's going to be either embraced or not by the younger generation. Because I see our kids, I think they're captivated by the storytelling element, because when I play a storytelling podcast in the car, they get into the story, but they are not on their own volition going grab a pair of headphones and start listening to podcasts.
Yeah, it's interesting how listeners come to it to begin with anyway, and that relationship seems to change, and that's also evolving. And that, alongside with podcasts, is also just becoming sort of audio storytelling. And the way that audio is sharing is going to completely change. And so also that question, will Spotify ruin podcasting? Well, when is podcasting going to evolve beyond the RSS feed, or will it evolve beyond the RSS feed? So I don't think it's a matter of whether or not podcasting is the future. It's just about how it's going to change. But
how it's going to evolve.
Audio content, meaning content that is audio only, is most definitely on the rise, and businesses are all about it. More and more money's pouring into it in every way. It's been around longer than film. It's been around forever with radio and everything else. So it's a very long standing, tried and true format that human beings, we love to listen. We love to hear our ears, and it allows us to multitask. So these younger generations, they're going to be listening to a podcast while they're on another device or even on the same device somehow, doing a bunch of other things too. Because
that's what I see about podcasting, is that multitasking component. There are so many things competing for our attention every day, and just to have that thing that you can do while you do other things. It's all about time and how do we spend it, and which platforms are we on. And, are we spending 2 hours on TikTok, watching TikToks? And then what about the other things that we need to do?
Yeah.
So, but if you can have your entertainment while you're doing other tasks.
Or your education while you're doing
your
other
education,
tasks. Because that's one of the greatest things about podcasting is the education component. And the news component and the being informed component.
Yeah.
A lot of people are turning to independent audio as a place for them to get their real news, and it's causing all sorts of issues with that. But it is an authentic place where you can go find people that you relate to get the information that you want from them. Communities are emerging that are able now to express and share their messages that weren't able to before, that didn't have a voice before. And so truth is actually being encouraged, even though it might not seem like that. And so it has a lot to do with the future. And it definitely is the future.
I remember and I think you used to tell me too that you used to listen to podcasts when you were working, when you were at work.
Oh yeah, definitely.
When I had my corporate job and I was doing all this computer work that was just like boring and dry and repetitive, I was listening to different podcasts and I was like getting feeling like I was doing something for me. Like learning a new thing, learning a new skill, learning by, other people doing it and doing different things and examples.
I had a $12, $15 an hour job manufacturing rock climbing equipment. And it felt like I was being paid to get educated because I could just put my headphones in, and I had to wear the ear protectant headphones anyway. So I got some that have headphones in them, and I would just 12-hour shifts, just listen to podcasts. And by the end of it, it really was like I had gone.
Yeah, in places that if you pull out your phone, you're fired.
Yeah.
But you can listen to podcasts.
You can listen to podcasts, yeah. So it's definitely the future, and there's different branches, different technologies, different ways that things are changing. The Spotify and Apple developments are really exciting. And also scary to a lot of people in the industry. Everything could change. We all know that Clubhouse is the hot new thing. Twitter Spaces, everybody has their version of Clubhouse. Even though I don't think Mark Cuban, I don't know what happened with his Clubhouse thing. That I haven't heard anything from that. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But there's a ton of new technology all the time. So it's going to be really fun. And
be quick to adapt and be quick to jump on those trends and not get too fixated with one idea over the other. Be open-minded and willing to try different things. And a funny story, when I was listening to podcasts at work, like I would be listening to this gory, disgusting true crime shows. It was pretty funny. Used to be listening that in the middle of a corporate setting.
Yeah, I know. And some of those shows, they take it too far, in my opinion. But that does it. I've been trying to wrap up this episode, and Veronica just wants to keep chatting about podcasting. This is her favorite time of week when we make our podcast. But hey, you've got to stop, okay?
Okay.
We're supposed to keep our episodes to a certain length. We're podcast coaches.
You don't tell me how to live.
Okay, I'm sorry. I might not tell you how to live, but I'll tell you when to stop.
We love you. We're grateful for you. Come and say hi on social media at Pod Sound School on Instagram and Twitter.
We also have a ton of helpful videos over on YouTube. We do tutorials, demonstrations, motivational stuff. We do all sorts of content creation hacks. So make sure to check us out over there as well. And until we meet again,
Feliz casting.
Feliz casting, amigo.
Bye.